one of the founder and co-curator of DIY Cultures. This is the third year we've done it in a row. And this is going to be the first opening talk, which is related to the exhibition, which is in the Cafe Gallery. So previously DIY Cultures has been on 2 rooms, and now we've opened up to 5 rooms on 4 different floors. And people are going to talk about artifacts that you see in the exhibition. The first person speaking is Chardine, who you might know from the punk band Big Joanie. The image you see above is from a movement called Reclaim Brixton.
Hello everyone, my name is Chardine. I'm also a member of Reclaim Brixton, and so I was invited here today to talk about that and just like forms of DIY kind of activist practice along with these wonderful people here. So how did Reclaim Brixton start? Well, Reclaim Brixton, so the core of the people who kind of started the day, school women, myself, Cindy, Laura and Lawrence, who just 4 working class women from Brixton. Cindy, who runs a shop there, she's been in Brixton all her life and was like a bit tired of seeing what's happening now. And I kind of want to do something about it, and lots of people know her, so she put an event on at the Ritzy and invited loads of different groups to come in, groups that had already been doing stuff around gentrification in Brixton and near Brixton, and just to connect people. And so we had an event, we had music, because all of us happen to be DJs as well, so, and people connected, and it's like, okay, well let's do something, we really want to be seen, and we want our campaigns to be seen and to get known. So we picked the 25th of April as a day, and it was initially going to be a march, then it became just a kind of event to celebrate the diversity of Brixton. So a lot of people ask me, what exactly is Reclaim Brixton, Chardine? I see this here, I see that there. What the kind of concept of it, if you think about it as a kind of like a hashtag type thing, it's like a forum, an umbrella forum to bring publicity to all the different campaigns that have already been going, like the Guinness Trust and Preston Guards and stuff. So that's what we wanted to do. We did that by social media, by talking to people, lots of groundwork, and we kind of did the whole day in 3 weeks, which sounds pretty ridiculous when I think about it now. We literally just put a Facebook event up, and it just went viral, and it got a bit crazy, and then we started to panic and thought, oh my god, we haven't got anyone performing, we haven't got anything happening. But as with the nature of things, people felt really passionate about it and started to contact us and offer us their services, I suppose you can say, in some way. So how we kind of organised the day, we kept having open meetings, and some of them were probably about as big as this, and just to make sure everyone has their own voice and to be able to contribute, because I think the way we work in Reclaim Brixton, we're not an organisation. We don't have, we're not, you know, we don't have a mailbox or anything like that. So it's very much like an open forum for anyone to come along and contribute in a way, and then just the 4 of us kind of manage those contributions, if that makes any sense. And yeah, so that's how it came about, and some of the things that we're going on to do now from the success of that day, which we're going to be doing some community engagement programs. Art Brixton, which is another group working around gentrification in the area, much more arts focused. They're doing community programs. They just had one yesterday, and they're doing one next week. So definitely check them out. They're doing some fantastic work. And also, we'll also be having meetings with local councillors. We had one a couple of weeks ago, because there's a new development happening in Brixton called Pop Brixton, which is kind of similar to the Box Park thing over there. And the council didn't tell anybody anything about anything. So what we decided to do was put up a meeting so the community can come and actually ask questions to the proprietors of this. And it was quite a heated meeting. I don't know what's going to happen coming from Pop Brixton, but we're keeping an eye on it. And also, there's lots of collaborations happening with, I think there's a reclaim happening that started now, I heard from the Left Assembly. There was a reclaim Barnet that happened a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, there's no ownership of Reclaim Brixton. So when I'm here talking about it, it's not a sense of, well, I am Reclaim Brixton and this is, you know, you have to do things a certain way. It is an open kind of, I don't say organisation, because that's what I'm saying, isn't it? But a thing, a space that people can use. Some of the challenges that we've had, particularly because I've got a lot of activism in my background, but the other three women don't. So the way that they approach their activism was very different, and a lot of other groups found that quite challenging and quite that they didn't understand where they were coming from. So like I said, most of us DJs, one of the people is the events manager at Brixton. So the way we approached doing Reclaim Brixton was coming from that kind of place. It was coming from a much more sort of creative, you know, sort of, I guess club culture actually. That's the only way that I can really think about it. Like if you're putting on a sort of underground warehouse party, how would you go about it? You'd be looking for where we're going to get the power, where we're going to do this. Actually, one story, the Black Culture Archives had actually offered us their power and then decided not to the day before. So I was running around, knocking on people's doors up and down, like half in tears, like, can you let us use plugs for the PA? But someone actually gave us their PA system at the end, and that just shows how so many different people contributed to the day. People gave us microphones, people gave us high-vis jackets, people gave us paint to make the placards with. It was a total community effort. So yeah, that was Reclaim Brixton.
So this talk, DIY Justice, it shares the same title as the exhibition, which you may see in the Cafe Gallery. Sophia, who's my co-curator of this festival, she's been travelling back and forth to an autonomous occupied space called Grow Heathrow, which you might see on the big wall display in the gallery downstairs. And it's been going for over 5 years in response to Labour's call to open a runway in Heathrow. I found this image on the internet, and coincidentally the person who made the image is actually sitting right here. I'm sorry, can I ask all the people standing at the back, there's a whole seat row in the front row, so if you can come around here and fill it, that would be really great. And if it ever gets too crowded, there's a mezzanine balcony too. So, DIY Cultures has always worked with a grassroots connection to all these exciting social movements, and that aren't run by Trotskyist groups or like the state. And so here in the sign you see it says Rue is our trained first aider, and here is Rue about to speak.
Hi. Hi. So yeah, I'm Rue. I made that sign literally about 5 minutes before we were due to open for our 5th birthday celebration. Coincidentally, I wrote what I'm going to talk about today about 5 minutes before I got up on stage, so we'll see if it goes as well as the sign did. I'm from Great Heathrow, which refers to a plot of land out by Heathrow Airport. It also refers to the group of people who occupy this land. It's my home. I've lived there pretty much continuously since December. Some people have been living there much longer. We've got people who've been living there 2.5 years, and the site has been going for 5 years solid. That's why we had our 5th birthday this year in March. It's part of a wider group called Transition Heathrow, which not only covers the people who live on site, but also our supporters and anyone else who wants to get involved. So people in the local villages who are our allies, the local MP, John McDonnell, we consider him part of Transition Heathrow, and lots more people like that. So like I said, we cover we occupy a piece of land out by Heathrow Airport. It's made of two conjoined pieces of land, and they're semi-forested. It's a really special place. Everyone who visits goes on about what a special place it is, because it's just really quite weird, because there's all these derelict greenhouse frames everywhere. 50, 60 years ago, it was a market garden making food for the local community. Some of you might not know this, but all of the area surrounding Heathrow used to be farmland, and then as the airport grew and expanded after the Second World War, it just kind of got eaten up by the airport movement and got made into workers' houses and things like that. So you still find these kind of relics of the old agricultural land that was there, and the Grow Heathrow site is one of these relics. We're covered in derelict greenhouses, and it feels quite post-apocalyptic in some ways. So we've got about 15 people who live permanently on site, and then up to about the highest kind of population we have at the moment is 30. Visitors from all over the world. I think on site at the moment there's about 7 languages being spoken, so it's a real global community. We get all our electricity off-grid. If you go downstairs to our exhibition, you can actually see a homemade solar panel. And we also have a wind turbine, so if it's not sunny, we can still get some electricity, provided it's windy. When it's not sunny or windy, we sit around with candles, and that's quite nice, so it works out. So a bit of the history of the site. It was founded in 2010 by people who'd been involved with the climate camp that was, again, fighting this idea of further Heathrow expansion. They'd already had kind of Terminal 5, and now they were talking again and again about building this new runway, which would demolish the whole of one of the Heathrow villages. It would flatten Harmondsworth and half of Sipson, and just cause misery for other people in the area in Harlington. So they were set up to create third runway resistance and form a community hub. And it's been going on since there, really. So, yeah. In terms of our current DIY ethos, nearly everything on the site is made out of reclaimed materials. It's pretty amazing. You've got homes built out of pallets. We have a wood-powered shower, which you can find out about downstairs as well. So before you take a shower, you have to take a bunch of wood and hack it up and start a fire and get that going. But then once you've got it going, it's great. It's just like any other shower. And yeah, it's fantastic. You don't have to pay for any electricity, because like I said, we're all off-grid with our wind turbine and everything. And we even have a cycle-powered washing machine, so you can get fit while you're doing your laundry, which is great. You pick it up and you get pedaling, and you get clean laundry. It actually works, which surprises a lot of people, because most people expect us to be kind of like stinky hippies, and we're not, because we have a shower and a washing machine that work off-grid. So we really kind of worked to, one of the core aims of Grow Heathrow was to create replicable structures for community living. So we wanted people to come and see us and then take away ideas from how we work and go out to their own community and set up similar structures, or say, oh, actually we could do that better and tweak it so it fits them. We make all of our decisions by consensus, so we don't vote on things. Instead, we try and create a solution and a proposal that works for everyone across site. I'm not going to lie, it's not quick and it's not easy, so it's not a case of, do we want X? Yes, okay, 5 people voted yes, okay, 2 people voted no, so we're going to do it. It's more a case of, how can we make this work for everyone on site? Which is quite good. It avoids something that we call the tyranny of the majority, which is where the people who are in the majority kind of rule over the other people because there's more of them, and we don't want that. We're a completely non-hierarchical space. It's quite anarchist. We believe in autonomy, and we believe in decision making that works for everyone. We also we also work on physical DIY, so we have a bike workshop. You can come and fix up your bike, build a new bike from scratch. You can find bikes on the street all the time that have just been semi-abandoned, they've got the wheels ripped off or whatever. We take them back, we fix them up, we use them. Bikes are our lifeblood in the community. We go out with bike trailers to go and get our food from the market, which we get for free. We go at the end of the day and just get loads and loads of food for free. We also grow our own food and host growing workshops. So you can come down, learn how to grow anything from like simple salads all the way through to sweet corn, squashes, just everything. And we also run preserving workshops, so you can learn how to keep your produce from going bad. And just generally, we just try to teach people skills in a space that's sort of, I don't really know how to describe it. It's not intimidating and it's free. Anyone can come, everyone from all strata of society are welcome. We say we have a suggested donation, but it's free for everyone. And when you consider some of the workshops we host, I've seen things like, for example, I did a paper making workshop about a month ago. I've seen paper making workshops at colleges where they charge you kind of like 20 to 50 quid to learn how to make recycled paper. And we did it all for free. And yeah, everyone had a great time. It was nice. It's good. Don't clap, that's weird. It puts a lot of pressure on people when you applaud them. Right, so in terms of the future of the project, and sort of where we're headed, we obviously want to continue our community resistance against airport expansion, because that's our key thing. We do not want this third runway to go ahead. We don't want these people to lose their homes. We don't want air pollution levels to rise even higher, and we don't want climate change to be spiraling out of control because people don't want to take the Eurostar to Paris and want to fly instead. So yeah, the Davies Commission, which is the commission that was set up to find out which airport in the UK should be expanded, is going to come back with its results later this year. So we're kind of a bit on tenterhooks to see what that means for us, but whether the answer is yes or no, it doesn't matter. We're going to keep resisting. We're going to, yeah, we might build a siege tower. A different squad called Yorkley Court built a siege tower, and I want to see if we can build one that's bigger and better, because that would be awesome. We're going to continue to teach skills. We've got a whole workshop program that's going through May and June. There's a flyer for that downstairs. It's called Shazam. There's all kinds of things. We're hosting life drawing, reclaimed jewellery workshops. What else? Ellie, what other workshops are we doing? What? Loads of shit, says Ellie. We're doing community gardening. You can come and learn to grow things. Everyone's welcome, and anyone's welcome any day of the week as well. We're completely open site. One other thing we're trying to do, we're looking at maybe moving to being fully off-grid and having a fossil fuel-free kitchen, because we do have free electricity, but we still cook on gas at the moment. So we're looking at building a biodigester. Anyone who knows anything about building biodigesters, get in touch, come down, because it would be interesting to talk to you. And we just want to keep being an established community hub and reaching out across the local area. We've got involved, we set up a thing called Hearts, which is the Heathrow Arts. Heathrow Arts is what it's called. It was set up by a lady called Rose, who used to live at Great Heathrow, but is still involved through Transition Heathrow. And they do art projects across the community as well. So we're hoping to expand that. Yeah, we just want to kind of continue to provide an alternative way of living and a space where people can learn and grow.
Hi, for those of you who have just come in, the title of this talk is called DIY Justice, and it's expanding on the themes of the exhibition, which is in the cafe gallery downstairs. There are many people standing at the back. There are actually 3 spare seats at the front row, so please come and sit down. And you can also, there's comfortable sofas on the mezzanine floor up here, so what you need to do is go around the corner of the stage and sit there. So the next person who's about to speak is well known to many of us who have sort of been involved in the London activist scene. She's one of the founder members of Defend the Right to Protest, campaigning against state and police violence. What's happened here? So there's a piece in the exhibition DIY Justice, and it's a badge collection. What can someone explain what's happened here? Done? Okay. Anyhow, anyway, the reason the talk started late is actually because my father's in this building somewhere, and I'm looking for him. So if anyone's seen an Asian man in his 70s with a beard, just tell him to sit in the front row or so. Okay, there's a person who's been an inspiration to DIY cultures and organising making, which is in the badge collection, which is this person here, Lisa Simpson, of course. And you might know the group Girls Get Busy, who have made a whole zine anthology just dedicated to Lisa. So I'm going to make Nina start with why Lisa Simpson is such an inspiration.
Okay, thanks Hamja. This is obviously a picture from my badge collection, which is downstairs. I wanted to thank Hamja and Sophia and others for this event today, because it's brilliant once again, and the organisational sort of backdrop to it is just incredible. I wanted to talk, before I talk about the campaign Defend the Right to Protest, I wanted to talk a little bit about badges and what badges mean or don't mean. And I think, in a way, I've had these badges obviously since I was a kid. They're not that many, you probably have weeded out some at various points. I think it's kind of funny how you can reconstruct a narrative. I'm not particularly big on memory or nostalgia, unlike quite a lot of people. But nevertheless, I was looking back over them for this show, and and Friends of the Earth, and I think there's a kind of a sort of memory of that kind of that sort of sentiment when people started getting mobilised around, I guess, questions of greenhouse gas and the greenhouse effect, I guess, as it was called then, and started talking about the ozone layer and so on. And then I guess for some reason in my early 20s I thought it would be a good look to go for like a Soviet goth look. So I have lots of ironic Leninist badges, some of which are like about the space program, which I was also obsessed with at that point, which is not very environmental, I apologise. But it was more a kind of, you know, cultural and aesthetic interest, probably. And I think it's interesting in more recent years, as I've been involved in magazines like Strike and other projects like the Open University in Sarajevo, how badges have sort of been resurrected once again as a kind of, I don't know, a sort of symbolic political device or artifact. And I think I've noticed, looking back at the collection, there are quite a lot of square badges in recent years, and I'm quite interested in the, you know, the rebirth of the square badge. So yeah, there's the PCS badge and various badges from strikes and protests in Quebec. I've also got a few anarchist and ACAB and kill all cops type badges, of course I do. And I think thinking about the relationship between symbolic and direct action is also something that I think about when we come to think about protest. And whether protests are, in a sense, representing or protesting about something, or whether they are literally shutting something down. And I think that's a question that's been very prominent, particularly in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests here in the USA. I think badges are a kind of declaration of a memory, a kind of memory also of a kind of politics, a politics that you could wear on your sleeve or on your chest, literally. And maybe also perhaps a representation of politics in the future. Why are badges still around? Why have they seen maybe a kind of revival? Why are sort of magazines, political magazines and groups still using badges? So, yeah, I mean, DTRTP, we do have our own badges. They're not the most beautiful things in the world, possibly. Hopefully you had some here. We tend to use a sort of poster from '68 of a kind of cop. It's quite a famous image of the cop with his baton raised, a sort of poster image with a kind of line crossing through. So obviously a kind of almost like a traffic warning, a sign against police violence. We basically began in the wake of 2010, in the wake of the student protests. And it's interesting, just this week we've seen like the first real prosecution of one of the police officers who broke someone's tooth during the protest, one of the more minor injuries of that day. And this police officer, PCO, got 8 months for ABH. And I think one of the things that we need to discuss, and one of the things we do discuss in our group, are questions of justice, what we mean by justice, questions of prison abolition. What does it mean when we try to think about forms of retribution, or how we might avoid thinking of retribution in terms of state forms of punitive justice and penalisation. So that, I'm not going to lie, it's an ambiguous and ambivalent question about how we feel if and when police officers are ever prosecuted or ever found guilty for anything they do, which raises issues about how we feel about the state and so on. And these are, I guess I say, open and ongoing and very difficult questions. In our more practical work, we've done a lot of work with kind of left-wing criminal defence lawyers who are suffering from cuts to legal aid and so on, and obviously in the wake of the Tory majority government. We're also thinking about what the sort of challenges to the Human Rights Act might mean, whether that's going to happen or not. It's a kind of open question. We're campaigning against things like water cannon, we're campaigning against use of batons, kettling, horse charges, and all of the things that the state use in protest, and increasingly use, and what that means in terms of a global picture about protests and the prosecution then of protesters. We also started to think about the asymmetrical way in which the state is violent towards different groups of people. We started off thinking about student protests and protests, but we quickly began to work with justice campaigns and campaigns around death in custody, and the very asymmetrical, racist way in which the police and state violence is perpetuated, and how that plays out in terms of the way in which people are categorised and treated. Yeah, so I guess we've got a lot of ongoing sorts of struggles and campaigns that we're working with, and we try to work with a very broad range of groups. We're not tied to a particular model of organising. We have a very open kind of meeting structure as well, but we're probably, you know, we do have specific aims and ambitions which do involve a lot of different people. But we are always looking for more people to get involved, especially in terms of media and things like that. So if anyone's interested, they can talk to me, but I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Lena. I'm just seeing there's loads of people up sitting at the back, standing at the back. You can actually go to the mezzanine floor where there's loads of comfortable sofas. If you just walk around the side of the stage there should be some staircase. I'm sure the election was just mentioned there. I'm sure many of us in the room feel depressed about it. Perhaps one of the worst things that's going to happen is the CTS Act and the statutory use of prevent. In some ways, like many of the actions taken in the name of fighting Islamic and terrorism actually affects us all. So the next speaker is Lena Mohamed, who is from the Islamic Human Rights Commission, who have a stall over there, and also a very exciting new group called Decoloniality London, who also present at the festival. So Lena.
Thanks, Hamja. So as I was asked to speak about the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act, and like Hamja said, the prevent measures, I'm mostly going to speak from my experience at the Islamic Human Rights Commission, because we do, primarily the work that we do is campaigning against the way in which Muslims are constantly being demonized in the West, and that happens through individual hate crimes, but more significantly through acts of state oppression via legislation like the CTS. So not many people know about it. I hope you're okay if I just give a brief breakdown of what it does, and in particular what prevent is. So counter-terrorism and security bill brought in a raft of measures that were really quite frightening, and a lot of it went unnoticed by the mainstream media. But the things that were flagged up, and the mainstream media always flags this up, is curtailment to freedom of speech, and then also potentially any measures that would be in violation of UN security measures. So those are things that will affect the media, the establishment. What didn't get addressed in any of the media coverage was the fact that CTS targets Muslims, just like every other piece of anti-terror legislation there is out there. So although the legislation itself might not talk about Muslims, we all know that terrorist equals Muslim, Muslim equals terrorist. And in fact, all the guidance that's given around this legislation always talks about Muslims. So there's no doubt in anyone's mind that this is who they're targeting. So I'm going to focus in particular on prevent, which is what IHRC is doing a lot of work around. And I don't know how many of you know about it, but certainly Muslim communities around the country are well aware of what prevent is. It is a program that is intended to de-radicalize people at risk of extremism and or terrorism. Now, extremism is one of those words that's not clearly, well, terrorism isn't properly defined by the government, but extremism certainly is not defined properly by the government. So previously, prevent has just been a matter of flooding largely Muslim communities with funding, which is intended to draw Muslims into certain programs that will take them away from their communities. But with the CTS Act, there is it's incredibly frightening. It's a lot more than that now. So Prevent is a program that every local authority, school, hospital, doctor's surgery, social security, social services department has to pay attention to. So every single officer within any of these service providers has to be on the lookout for potential extremists. Every single one of them, they have to work together, they have to work with the police in order to spot who may or may not be an extremist. They then get, if a panel assesses whether that individual is at risk of becoming an extremist, and that individual is then referred to a de-radicalization program, which is essentially just, it's stripping them of any sort of sense of agency and taking them away from their communities. So I want to speak very briefly about how the government defines extremism. So like I said earlier, it's a very broad definition. It could apply to anyone. And I also want to point out that extremism is essentially the stage before terrorism. So they're not saying you are a criminal. They're trying to prevent you from becoming a criminal. And so an extremist, according to the government guidelines, is someone who is against British values, who is against fundamental British values. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that phrase bandied about, particularly by the Conservatives. So fundamental British values include, but are not restricted to, the rule of law, democracy, and also support for the British Armed Forces. So potentially speaking against democracy, the rule of law, or the British Armed Forces will get you the label of extremist. So, for example, if I were to say that the definitions aren't very clear, but if I were to say that the British state, in its sort of enactment of British democracy, is actually an oppressive white supremacist system, then I could be labelled an extremist. If I were to, in my opposition to the British government intervening in another country, as it does continuously, and in my frustration with that support the defeat of the British Armed Forces, that would that would mean that I potentially am calling for the death of the British Armed Forces, and then therefore I'd be labelled an extremist. So it has an impact on essentially any opposition to the state. And so it implicates everyone. This piece of legislation can apply to anyone, but we know that it targets Muslims. So the government also says that Islamists, which again they haven't really defined, but Islamists, so I guess Muslim extremists, are those who perceive Western interventions in Muslim countries as being about Britain being against Muslims. So given the fact that when Britain bombs, drones, or invades any country, it's primarily a Muslim country, it's hard to see that it's anything but Britain targeting Muslims. So there's no way around it, which means that potentially every single Muslim is going to be targeted by Prevent. So that's the thing that's really frightening. The fact that all service providers have had to link up, they've had to, it is a duty for them to link up, to communicate with each other, for councils to talk to each other. It means that they've got the whole country covered. Any Muslim within British jurisdiction is targeted by this. So, I mean, the guidelines only came out a few weeks ago, so we're still kind of trying to get to grips with what this actually means. But it's clear that the work that IHRC and other Muslim organizations around the country, the work that we've been doing on Prevent is just not sufficient anymore. So what previously used to happen was that we would be in communication with Muslim organizations that were targeted by Prevent and encourage them not to accept Prevent money because that implicates their programming. And we would also work with them to be able to identify who the Prevent officers were and make sure that they didn't feel compelled to be in meetings where there were Prevent officers. But it's clearly not enough now. So we're trying to widen the scope, trying to work beyond just Muslim communities, realizing that we do need to be speaking to any and all social justice movements around the country to tackle this legislation. And the thing is, unfortunately, as much as we don't want to resort to the state to resolve the problems, this piece of legislation does need to get thrown out. So while we want to work on individual cases in challenging any attempt by their council, for example, to target them by the Prevent route, we also want to make sure that we can then take it higher up and then get the Supreme Court, get the European Court for Human Rights to deem this piece of legislation a complete violation of human rights. So what we're doing is, this is our first sort of big step, is we are having a conference on Saturday the 13th of June. It's a conference on Prevent, and we are inviting anyone who is interested to come and join us and just share ideas on how best to tackle this. But also, it's the beginning of what we hope will be a sort of intro community training on what Prevent is, how to spot it when you're being approached through the Prevent route, and then also how to tackle it on an individual basis and who you have to. So IHRC, for example, will be dealing with cases around Prevent. So if you or anyone you know is being targeted by your local council, by your doctor, whoever it is, come to us and we will try and help you tackle your individual case. There were some other things that I wanted to mention.
Just to make a quick announcement, the conference that Lena mentioned on Prevent, it's taking place at the Water Lily, which is just quite in the local area, on the 13th of June, and I think it's free to attend, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's from 2 p.m.
And there's a stall for IHRC somewhere on that side, so if you want to find more information.
Sorry.
Sorry, can people at the back hear us?
Very well, because I'm struggling to hear from the noise. Okay, yo, people over there buying stuff. Thank you. So we've got a panel of women here, and sometimes when we're speaking, people can't hear us. So if you guys could just whisper while you're doing your shopping and buying everyone's amazing things, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
So I also want to briefly highlight, I thought it might be interesting to share some of the stories that we have had where Prevent is being implemented in schools. So IHLC is doing a lot of work around schools. So for example, we have one case where 3 young boys of Arab origin were in their school and they were watching a comedy where a man dressed in army fatigues was shooting a rifle in the air. Now, a non-Muslim school friend of theirs saw them watching that, reported it to the teacher, and the teacher has since, because of all these measures, has had to call in the parents and essentially implement some sort of intervention to prevent these kids from ever watching anything like that in school again. No other children watch a lot in school, right? But no one has been targeted in this way, and it is because they're Muslim, and it's because of this fear of what they're watching. And obviously, there needs to be communication between teachers and parents, and also safeguarding of children. But this was just a sort of another level monitoring of these kids. And then we also had a case where this school allowed children to do their Friday prayers on premises, and they had always had a teacher leading the prayers. So once this program started to unroll, this Muslim teacher had to be monitored by a non-Muslim teacher. So there's just there's a system whereby every Muslim is a suspect and every one of us is being watched. So, like I said, we're in the very sort of initial stages of trying to tackle this, but we are also very concerned about the new measures that the government has suggested it's going to unveil later this year. So a new counter-terror bill, despite the fact that the last one just came out in January. And essentially, I mean, the measures are vague at the moment, but there is the suggestion that there will be a positive duty to support British values. So you have to, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means you have to wear Union Jacks when you walk around, or I have no idea what that means. But the fact that you have to constantly express your support for the state is a really frightening development. So, I mean, we're fighting Prevent right now, but as we're fighting, it's getting more and more difficult. They're just tightening the screws. We need as much support as possible. So come along to our conference on the 13th and also be in touch with us, and just, we just need to keep up communication, and in the way that the state is linking up with linking up all its entities to ensure that no Muslim goes unnoticed. We also need to be linking up and fighting in a similar way against them.
Thank you, Lena. I'm going to have to make one announcement. So at 2 o'clock, the first workshops are beginning, and they're on the 4th floor. So we are actually in 5 different rooms. So on the 4th floor on the left where the theatre is, the Make Your Own Video Game workshop is starting in 10 minutes. So if anyone wants to head upstairs, please do so. And there's also a workshop called What is Your Activism by the collective Sorry If You Feel Uncomfortable. I'm told there's plenty of free spaces available, so please go upstairs if you're free. For those people standing out the back, you can actually go to the top if you just go up the stairs behind the screen. Within the exhibition, you have this reading room called Visions of the Future, and that's by the organisation that organises DIY with us, which is called OOMK. Hudda is one of the editors of OOMK, and she's going to talk about visions of the future and what OOMK are doing now.
Okay, thank you everyone. That's such a very kind introduction you gave me. I'm not one of the editors, but I'm a part of the collective. OOMK, one of my kind, is what it stands for, is a small press publication that is devoted to the creativity and spirituality and activism of women, particularly women of colour. And the founder is Sophia who's probably floating about somewhere in the back, and as well as Rose Muradin and Selma Khan, who are in collective Oxford women. They come from sort of a variety of countries, from Algeria, from Somalia, Pakistan, and all the things that happen in the world. The general murder, mayhem, many of us are refugees, that being political, having a sort of an outset that's not just sort of often as people interested in creative arts or artistic things, that we're encouraged to think of sort of just the art and what we feel in an aesthetic, and perhaps that's divorced and devoid of a political perspective. And so our art is often very political, and there's not many spaces in which people can be political in this day and age. And we're hearing a lot in respect of the great work that Lena is doing with the protect the right to protest. We're in Brixton as well, that the very political perspective in which gentrification is framed. So it's not just about the fact that they built Starbucks in the station, but the fact that Lambeth Council has been committing genocide of reducing social housing, for the last at least 30 years, closing down secondary schools and primary schools, encouraging private developers to take over land that was previously council land. The fact that it's had a corrupt council for 30 years that has, no, I mean like literally, like there's been embezzlement and we've been in deficit for a long time. But these artistic spaces that us as creative artistic people, they come from a history. They come from places, not just in our personal stories as well. And so OOMK we want to be a space where people can come with that and come with their different perspectives. And so if you see the magazine, one of the only male contributors was a poet, Feminist Ahsan, who was called as Hamja's brother, and he was arrested without charge and detained. Well, Hamja going to talk more about his brother's campaign, but and we had discussions about sort of drone bombing and the assassination attempt on Malala Yousafzai, the politicization of her story by the same states that are drone bombing Pakistan and have been supporting Taliban and terrorist activities in Afghanistan and Pakistan for years. So yeah, but also have like pictures about pictures and stuff about people who like to crochet and things, because as human beings we have many different stories that we want to tell. But there are structures, especially in the art world, that sort of prefer one type of voice, or something that sells, something that is commercially viable, and also often reinforces a narrative that is state-based. So, I mean, I could talk about the Arts Council. I'm sure there are people out here that can talk about it better than I can, but we don't get Art Council money, and we don't get money from Prevent, and that's, yeah. So, DIY Cultures is about that. It's about how can we tell our stories ourselves in a way that keeps our stories that we want to say, that we need to say, that is not constantly implicated, constantly asked to be moderated, to have our voices told in a different way. And DIY Justice is another permutation of that, but perhaps an even more substantive, grounding perspective on that, in that these everyday struggles that people have as artists, as human beings trying to get on with their day, they're located in a structure. And so we've talked about the state and the prevent strategy and defend the right to protest and what's happened there, and the climate change movement and the sort of Heathrow expansionist movement and the logics that perpetrate that. And so we're trying to think through those things, using art as a medium, not the only medium, but a medium to do that. So we had an exhibit at the Islamic Human Rights Commission called Visions of the Future, whereby we thought about what kind of world did we want to live in. And the contributors came from sort of a variety of spaces. One of the things that I enjoyed the most, that wasn't what we contributed, was a story by someone called Awa. She's about something like that. It was looking at a story in Palestine whereby in occupied West Bank, the structure of occupation was that Palestinians had to rely on, and still do for a large extent, much of their everyday groceries, milk, cheese, everything from the Israeli occupation forces. So people were having to buy Israeli milk to drink. So Palestinians ostensibly were bankrolling their own occupation. And so some people decided to liberate some dairy cows and kept them and hid them in their houses. Like, this is the story I love, that they hid these cows in their houses, and they were able to create sort of a cooperative, like a milk cooperative, and able to support their own internal economies and not be funding the occupation. These are the everyday stories of which how sort of the consumer choices that we make can have a sort of an impact on our communities. So I'm just reminded of that story when I hear about growing Heathrow, because the idea of going off grid and saying that, you know, these kind of global structures that tell us that we need to have bananas every day from flowing across the world and things like that, and that contributes to climate change, that contributes as a kind of a way of living that's dangerous for the environment and for the people in the environment. So I'm going to wrap up. I'd love to hear what you guys say, and also people here, because I think one of the great things about DIY cultures is that it brings so many different types of people together. And I think that the things that, and also it encourages us not to be spectators. So it feels very odd, us sort of with big bright lights, looking at you on a stage, and we're not about that life. We're here to discuss, to talk, to share. And so hopefully, you know, you'll have a chance to talk to different stallholders and come to us after this. And hopefully this question and answer as well, we can have that. But I think we'll come to it.
At the start of the talk, I made a missing persons announcement from my dad. So I'm still, I've left this talk till the end because I'm actually looking for him still. Some people here might know me because of the sort of state violence directed against my brother and my family specifically. So one of the campaigns that DIY Cultures and OOMK has supported is the FreeTalha Ahsan campaign. Sorry, can I ask everyone at the back to take the free seats up the front and sit upstairs? So my brother was ripped from his family home whilst doing a job interview, whilst about to do a job interview to be a librarian, given that's how dangerous he was, by the United States government on an extradition request for on terrorism offences for marginal association with a long obsolete website about Bosnia, Chechnya and Afghanistan. He was then detained without trial or charge or even evidence, since the extradition treaty doesn't require that, for over 6 years. This is the prison poetry book that he wrote in prison, which you can get at the back. And Theresa May, who you see there, she actually said, wasn't it great to say goodbye in terms of putting him in a death row supermax prison in solitary confinement, despite never having broken British law, despite never having actually been there. So I felt the sharp end of the state's violence. So Talha was in a supermax death row prison, and I can safely say, with all the support of many people here, that he's free, safe, and at home in London where he's been. The one thing that is not safe, so this Theresa May head was at the Welcome Home rally when his freedom was announced, and had a big rally outside of the Home Office last year. Sadly, the Theresa May head, which was supposed to be in the exhibition downstairs, went missing. So it's somewhere in the Bishopsgate archive somewhere, and will be there. But she says by an artist collective called BBKP. We still do have the head of Chris Grayling though, which is is downstairs, who is just as evil. So I think what happened to my brother is like a red light warning of worse things to come. So even though Mohamed had Asperger's syndrome, he was deprived of sight and sound and put on a plane as if being kidnapped by terrorists. That isn't the worst thing that Theresa May has done. There are LGBT people that she's deported who have gone to their deaths, and she has blood on her hands, and it hurt me very much to see her re-elected and still Home Secretary. So I'm going to, because no one can find my dad, I'm just going to quickly go through my experiences in the United States. So I went to the United States for the very first time to visit my brother in a death row prison, and he still managed to be my annoying older brother and tell me to cut my nails and stuff. These are all my favourite people in New York. So this is in Manhattan in New York, and this is a gathering that takes place every single month outside a prison called Metropolitan Correctional Centre. Attorneys who've dealt with Guantanamo Bay suspects have said the worst prison isn't Guantanamo Bay, it's this one in New York. And it's the one we send many British citizens, and British citizens have been stripped of their citizenship, like Madi Hashi too. And we meet there every month and discuss cases and read prisoner poetry and so forth. And there are many sort of prisoner families. The person in the pink shorts is actually the guy from Dark Matter, if you know that band. I'm gonna so yeah, do Google that and you know something just. So people think what happens in Guantanamo Bay is some sort of aberration, but most of the procedures that you see in these horrifying news stories in Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib occur legally within the US domestic supermax prison system, and pretty much set precedent. So things like force feeding, where you're stuck in a tube into someone's nose to feed them, which is counted as a form of torture. Things like forced cell extraction, where you gas someone up cell till they choke. The worst abuses of mentally ill people, and most of the things that have been done at Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo Bay have been done to black people for centuries within the system. They are earlier wars of terror, and there are many continuities. I'm going to just so, since we're running out of time, I'm going to just play a video. So this is I can't find my dad sadly, and this is probably the bit you would have liked to see the most. So this is a never seen before video, and so even though Theresa May tried to say my brother was some sort of dangerous Al-Qaeda, blah 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 blah, and the US government attempted to give him a 25-year sentence or have him die in a US supermax prison. Let's remember, within solitary confinement in the United States, 50% of suicides in the US prison system take place, and you have a 700% increase in suicide, in self-harm and things like that. And so the judge actually saw my brother from what he was, so she said he was a really creative guy. She was actually a fan of his poetry as well, which is not something you get from judges. He's a really radical judge who rejected most of the findings of the US government and sent him home really straight away on a time served thing. So this is a video that we sent to the judge, and because my parents are elderly and couldn't travel all the way to the United States, they made this video for to talk about how it affected them. As much as we talk about forms of political organisation and resistance to state, I think what it is about at heart is that you have families who are abused, who've been through crap, and it's about making them feel less isolated, that they have support and giving them the fortitude to continue. So we still think, even with families like Hillsborough, they're still struggling for justice 25 years later. Same with the Miners family 30 years later, and many of the deaths in police custody, which Nina Power talked about, where there is no police officer prosecuted after so many years. So I guess you'll see how my father looks like if you see around the building. Thala is also lodged around the building somewhere too. So I need to put this in the audio. Yeah. So this is a 3-minute video, and yeah, it's just my mum and dad. I put a picture of my Daddy in a sandwich on the campaign page, and he said, and it seemed to get 300 Facebook likes for some reason, so. Right. Good. So that's my mum on the left and my dad on the right. Okay, stop. Oops. Why does the sound not working? Anyway, at least you know how my father looks like, he's floating around the building. So come get the sound to work. Is that? We're just having a slight technical problem. Anyway, this is going to close the thing, and we're going to. Is there a roaming mic person anywhere? Hi. Yeah. So we're going to open up to questions after this 3-minute video. So please select one. Do you have a second roaming mic anywhere? So we're going to make a really quick announcement for an event taking place on Thursday with Numbi, who are one of the people who've been in DIY culture since the start. And I'm also going to say there are workshops in the room upstairs, and they still have no. Anyhow, so there's a quick. Sorry for my incompetence. A quick announcement.
Hello, I'm not going to take too much of your time. You probably noticed I have an accent. That's not true. You have an accent. I'm here over the summer working with Lumbi Arts from Toronto, Canada, and we have an event coming up on May 28th, and it's called Jesus. We may never be ready, but we share the stories anyway. I'm a storyteller, and one of the things we want to look at is, I'm going to read you the short little blurb. We all know what it means to have a story stuck in your throat, in your stomach, barely able to pass through your chest before your heart twists into itself. We have learned that these stories have less power if we never speak them out loud. What does it mean to be Somali? What does it mean to be free? What does it mean to challenge old stories while making new ones? What does it mean to define your own identity? Join us for an evening of storytelling and memory, past and future. The tickets are £5. The doors open at 7 and the event begins at 7:30, and it's going to be held at the Oxford House, which is, I say it wrong, but Derbyshire, just down the corner. My apologies. And nobody's hosting it, and I'll be facilitating it. So if you're interested in storytelling in any way, shape, or form, come out. It's going to be great. Thanks.
The video has been played somewhere else. You can stop the video from playing somewhere else as well. The video has also been played somewhere else. On your computer. On your computer it's been played.
By the way,
the video has been played on 2 different places right now. Close this one down and go into your phone and stop it from playing somewhere else.
Well, we're having all these technical problems, so just a brief, this is my father crying.
It's still being played somewhere on the computer. There you go, relaunch.
That's right, I'm really, well, maybe we'll play at the end of the Q&A. So I'm going to open it up to the audience now, and there's someone with a roaming mic. Can you put your hand up? Where's the roaming mic?
He's saying you've got like multiple video.
Yeah, I can play it later. So there's a roaming mic at the back, and so the first question, I'm going to get the person in the front row since he's found out.
Thank you very much. I wanted just to say something about this terrible law that you've been talking about. It reminds me of the McCarthy witch hunts. It reminds me of the witches that were taken to the ponds and ducked in the ponds in the 15th century. And we've been there before, and we've won. And as an older man looking around here, I want to end up on optimism, because I see a lot of young people here who are going to take on these laws when people my age are dead and gone. You will have victory, and you are supported. Well done.
Yeah, let's do our little plugs while we're waiting. I also work with Remembering Olive Collective, which has just restarted, and we're talking about gentrification. And we are holding a women's march on the 26th of June, which is Olive Morris' birthday. And those who don't know Olive Morris was a really prominent housing activist in Brixton. And the current housing benefit office is named after her, but that's going to be demolished, and they're not renaming another public-facing building after her. And this is also added on to the loss of a lot of places and buildings in Brixton, which were named after civil rights activists, of being demolished, and they're not being replaced. And part of Reclaim Brixton's work is also to talk about getting the names back of those black civil rights leaders in Brixton, because it's quite a cultural place for black British culture. So we're going to be holding a gathering where Olive Morris Gardens used to be, and then we will be walking up the road, because we don't have a permit. Then we'll be going up the road outside Olive Morris House, and we'll be having a rally there of women of colour, speakers and activists. So if people want to come and speak to me, if they want to come speak there, it'll be really great. It'll be on a Friday in the evening, so people will be able to pick their children up from school and come along down. So hopefully we'll see you there.
I just wanted to do a quick shout out because, as I said, we're hosting life drawing at Heathrow, and I need some models. It's every other Tuesday through May and June, so the next one's this Tuesday and that'll be 2 weeks after. Otherwise, I have to do it, and I don't mind that because I'm quite a good life drawing model, but I want to be able to run the sessions. So it's a nice, safe space. If you've never done it before, come along and get naked. It's fun. Okay, nice. If you need to get in touch, you can email the email address that's downstairs, which is info@transitionheathrow.com. Or is it .org or .com? .com. So info@transitionheathrow.com. You can email that, or you can come and find me and talk to me after this. And yeah, get naked. Good, cool.
We've only got 5 or 10 minutes, so I'm going to take like rounds of 2 questions if there are 2. So the Roman might go to this guy near the front, and the guy's just over there.
Yeah, I was just wondering what methods they use to radicalize people. Like if there was like specific things that were I guess suggested that would be done to de-radicalize someone, and then also how they determine that somebody has then been de-radicalized and what happens after they are no longer radical.
Thanks, Adam. So that's not clear yet, which is one of the problems. And it's the guidelines that came out a few weeks ago are so vague, and the purpose of that is that it can encompass absolutely anything. And it's also up to each local council to develop their de-radicalization program and their process of spotting extremists. So we don't know what it looks like yet, which is one of the problems. And it will depend on that particular council's history with the Home Office and how they're framing sort of extremism and terrorism and all that. I can't answer that question. I think in a few months' time, when we start to get cases, and we'll know what that looks like in different parts of the country, but I can't tell you that now.
So we're going to have, because we're running out of time, we have time for like one final question or comment or anything from the audience. Or from the panel to each other.
I thought it was quite funny that you talked about Heathrow with like the cows versus the banana thing, because we don't have any cows, but we actually have several banana trees, so it made me laugh quite a lot. Just wanted to say that. If we could have cows, we'd have them. So, yeah?
How did the bananas survive?
Well, we don't actually have harvestable bananas, but because we have the greenhouses, we have 2 greenhouses that are still functional greenhouses, so you can grow semi-tropical plants there, but you still can't get harvestable bananas. no cows.
I also want to say that one of the strategies that IHRC has learned is that we always have to have a backup plan. So like with the Reclaim Brixton thing where you didn't have your PA system, right? So we were supposed to have an event at Birkbeck at the end of last year, and because of a prevent officer, that plan was scuppered and we got kicked out. And so we now know that we always have to have a backup plan. Whenever you're in engagement with any organisation that potentially has any links to the state, back up.
I'm just going to make a comment because I've got to go. But yeah, no, I just want to say thank you to DIY Cultures, and also just it's so lovely just to see like sort of women here and having women of colour being really prominent in a lot of the campaigns that are happening now. So I know definitely for Reclaim Brixton, people assumed we were like these white middle class guys, and we were like, oh, we're like two middle class women, you know. So yeah, that's my last comment, and just to encourage people to, you know, if you want to do something, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. We did Reclaim Brixton in 3 weeks, and it's really galvanised people. So just, you know, put it on Facebook. Don't give a fuck and just go for it. And I'm off now, so.
I'd just like to give a round of applause for the audience, for the speakers. And the audience.
No, for the audience.
I'm just going to say there are workshops happening all day, and they're on the 4th floor of Venue 1, and there's loads of free spaces. So there's going to be a workshop about police and your rights, so everything related to here and is going to be dealt with in that workshop. And everything dealt with in the panel is in the exhibition, which is in the Cafe Gallery downstairs. That includes the whole Grow Heathrow artifacts, Lena Power's badge collection, including her Dennis Semenis and Lisa Simpson badge. And OOMK, all the back issues are available there to read for free with the Vision for the Future exhibition and the stall at the back. Even though it's a women of colour only, or women only magazine, there was actually one made in there, which was actually my brother when he was in prison. So there's a big thank you to that. So the next panel is going to be called DIY Education, and I'd just like to give a final round of applause to the speakers.